Hey there, what's going on, you guys? So today, DC put out on their official YouTube channel, James Gunn making an announcement of the upcoming projects he has in store for his slate of DCEU, as him and Peter Safran have taken over as the new people in charge of DCEU. And he's going to talk about how that pertains to the movies that will come out this year and everything moving forward. I watched the video myself, so I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown on it and my opinions on everything involved. So that way, first, I'll always give you guys the title of the production, a synopsis of what it's about, and then give you my opinions. That way, you can kind of go on a little more unbiased. I will put timestamps down below for you guys, so that way you can click to where you're interested in if you like, or just cheat ahead and see what it is. Let's get started. First up, the remainder of the remnants of the original DCEU. Those projects which are still coming up this year, which are going to be the ones that were announced, which is Shazam! Fury of the Gods, Flashpoint, Blue Beetle, and Aquaman 2, The Lost Kingdom, he said are still coming out. He did mention something very interesting, which I think a lot of people already speculated about and already figured out, which is that Flashpoint will restart, in fact, the entire DCU. So that is something. He did say that they're going to release the other movies. He didn't give a lot of detail about them. For me, I think that was a little refreshing to hear that they're not toying with these movies too much that are already coming out. Blue Beetle, he mentioned, but didn't talk in great detail just about him being a kid inside of the DCU. That's all he really said about it. And he did say that and Aquaman sort of lead into his, so maybe there's still a connection there. I don't know what he meant by that exactly. But to be honest, I'm glad those are just kind of living their own life. I'm a little on the fence about Flashpoint. And I am concerned about these films going forward because there's so many people at this point who are done with DC. They've moved on past DC because they feel James Gunn has really betrayed them at this point. He's really done them dirty with the releasing of Henry Cavill and Gal Gadot and Ben Affleck. And there's rumors he'll keep Ezra Miller after the controversy surrounding him, and he'll keep Amber Heard after the controversy surrounding her, and just so much. Those movies are going to have an uphill battle all this year, especially with them going up against movies like Marvel and other big releases. We have so many big movies coming out this year. So yeah, that's it for the movies that are already around. Moving on, let's talk about non-connected. So James Gunn touched on movies that are not going to be connected. It's going to be called the DC Elseworlds, which basically means it doesn't take place in the DCU. They're disconnected. He said Teen Titans Go, Matt Reeves' Batman universe that he has, things like that. It's all going to be, its own separate universe. They're going to be allowed to keep making those. They just will be under a different DC label, which is so refreshing to me. They're not going to try to connect them in there because they're very much their own things, particularly Matt Reeves' Batman universe. I'm very intrigued to see what it is going forward, as he's said that he is deep into the writing for the Batman 2, and the Penguin show is out potentially very soon. So I'm glad they're leaving that alone. It's a little refreshing. I'm happy it doesn't have to be bogged down by feeling connected to a larger universe. I don't think Robert Pattinson's Batman works in a bigger universe, so there's that. Moving on, we go to James Gunn's actual plan moving forward. So James Gunn told us that essentially this first chapter from his 8 to 10 year slate, he's only telling us about the first one, is going to be called Gods and Monsters. Essentially the phase 1, so to speak, of DC. His first project coming up is going to be called Creature Commandos. If you don't know, this is a very off-brand comic with very little known DC characters in it. It's going to be animated. It's going to be a TV thing, so it's probably going to be an HBO Max. And I think we kind of all knew James Gunn was going to go in a lot of odd directions because he loves picking these characters out of obscurity and putting them in something bigger. Personally, I have no excitement for this at all. I really don't have any interest in seeing it because it just doesn't appeal to me. And that's not what I'm looking for in my DCU, especially for that to be the very start. We're going with this. That just seems very, very much a lateral move, if you will, for James Gunn. Next up, we have a straight-up live-action version, which is called Waller. And here, it's going to be about Amanda Waller, still portrayed by Viola Davis. She's going to team up with members of Team Peacemaker, he said. And he said it's going to be out of this world, and he thinks it's really great. Personally, I am middle ground on this. I'm on the fence. I'm not really ecstatic for this. At the same time, I'm not underwhelmed. I am just about a 5 out of 10 out of excitement. It's there. I don't really want to see a big Amanda Waller thing, but I am intrigued a little bit, so I'll take a look at it, and I can see how that can play into the DCU moving forward, and there's potential there, I guess. There could be some potential to do something with that character. I'm just hoping the DCU doesn't go too comical with everything that it's doing. So James Gunn went up and said this to him is the honest, true start of the DCU. It's a movie coming out. It'll be released in July of 2025. It is called Superman Legacy. He said he's in the middle of writing it. He said he was really enjoying himself. We already know some details, which is it's about a younger Superman. It's not an origin story. However, it is a young Superman, like in his 20s. And for me, this is a mixed bag. On one hand, I'm very excited to get back to Superman on the big screen. I'm really happy that we're going to have a new Superman, but at the same time, I'm not. I love Henry Cavill's Superman so much. And when I was younger, my family, some things were happening, and when I saw Man of Steel, it really helped me to keep going. So I've always had a very strong connection to Henry Cavill's Superman, and I'm very mixed on this. This is going to take a while for me to really settle in before I give you guys an opinion on it. It's going to be a ride, but I've got some excitement for it, but at the same time, I've got that part of me that just doesn't want to let go. The next thing James went on to talk about was a TV series for HBO Max called Lanterns, following Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan. He said he'll probably have some more Lanterns put in there, so I'm hoping we'll see a few fan favorites. And this one I'm looking forward to. I've always really liked the Lanterns. I feel like we've never gotten the proper version of them in live action, and that's why this is really interesting for me. I want to see this become something great. I want to see live action. I want to see that camaraderie between these people, and I'm hoping James Gunn handles this with a clear state of mind, because this is something that just needs to be done right for me. I have a higher level of excitement for this than I do most of the projects he talked about. This one, though, I'm happy about. I'd say this is something I'm looking forward to, and this could be very interesting. The next step in his universe is a movie called The Authority. If you don't know who The Authority are, they are a bunch of superheroes, essentially, who hate the way the world is run, think there's a dark side to it. They're trying to fight crime their own way, and I do think this lends itself to a good story. I don't think a lot of people really know about this. I only know about it because my dad was super into comics, so I have a vague understanding of these characters, but from the little I understand and can remember of these, there's something there. I can see why he'd want to move with that. I don't know what they're moving forward with them with. I don't know if they're going to become part of the Justice League or anything, or what exactly this all plan is, but it can lend itself to something really exciting. If you have questions about any of these, honestly, I could say you can YouTube most of these characters and teams and find out about them, or just look it up on Google, because I'm going to have to do a lot of this after this video as well to get a more in-depth thought about this. But I think there's something within that could lend itself to an interesting story. And the thing that I am absolutely ecstatic for, there's one thing James Gunn mentioned there that made me like, oh, yes. It is a show, a TV live-action show called Paradise Lost, which is going to be set with the Amazonian culture, and he compared it to as if Game of Thrones was with that culture. And that is what I'm excited for. This is the one I want to watch. I've always wanted to see something like this because I love Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is one of my favorite superheroes of all time, as she's right there, looking over my shoulder, threatening me during this entire thing, but I'm so excited for this show. This is the one thing that he's announced that I'm absolutely 100% on board for, and I'm like, let's see it, let's get it, and I'm hoping it's going to be as good as they're making it out to be. I hope it balances all that juicy stuff like the violence, and it's fine, but let's move on. And then he went on to mention how we will get our first adaptation of Batman. It'll be in a movie called The Brave and the Bold, and it will have Damian Wayne in there as well as Batman. He went on to mention Damian Wayne is his favorite Robin, and this dynamic was going to be the start of his Batman movie to be in the DCEU. So that looks very potentially exciting for me. I'm really intrigued to see how that's going to work. And we'll have Robin back in Batman for the first time in live action since 1999. That's crazy how long we've not had Robin. My sister was born in 1999, so I wasn't even alive yet. So that's going to be something to see and look out for moving forward, particularly if you know the dynamic. I would say look into this if you don't know about it. It's a really cool dynamic, but it's something I'm like, if he gets it wrong, it's going to really fall off. He went on to elaborate there will be a Booster Gold TV show. To be perfectly honest, I'm a little excited, but I feel like James Gunn has the humor for Booster Gold. He knows how to make jokes or something like that, but at the same time, it's not something I'm crazy about. I'm excited for it. I'm just not out of my mind for it. I do want to see it. It's coming in the future. It's just TV. So, there'll be a part of me. I'll definitely check it out. But it's not something I'm crazy about, but I do really like the idea. And plus, it's nice that we're finally going to get Booster Gold doing a lot of stuff in live action. He went on to say that the very next film he has is a Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow based off of the comic run from last year, which is basically the concept of while Superman went to Earth, got this world, became strong and hopeful, Supergirl lived in this chunk of kryptonite and saw everything around her perish and suffer, and she becomes jaded and she doesn't see the world in the same light as Superman. This, again, I feel like James Gunn is walking on thin ice. He better be careful with this because the family of the House of L is something you have to get very correct in live action or in animation, especially if there's a live action film that he's going to call a science fiction epic, he said. You gotta watch it, because you can piss off a lot of fans, including me, if you get this wrong. So, again, excited, but reservations are involved. And the very last thing that James Gunn wanted to talk about was Swamp Thing, which will be a film that he said is going to be a very dark horror film to show the roots of the character. That's going to be tonally out with the rest of the universe, but he says is necessary. And for those reasons, I'm very hesitant about that, because another thing he wanted to say after he talked about Swamp Thing was how he wants every director's vision to be unique and things like that. And I couldn't help but think that sounds exactly like what DC's been doing. They have so many directors and so many writers doing so many different tones, nothing blends. And that could not work potentially. There is a potential it could, but I'm seriously having my doubts about the Swamp Thing coming up. So with all that explained, I'm going to give you my brief opinion on an overview of everything we just talked about. I'm going to start this off by saying I'm completely aware of how much debate and back and forth there has been on the hiring of James Gunn and his decision making. I will say honestly, his decisions before putting out this video, I was very negative on. I didn't like most of the decisions he made. They just seemed like some ideas he had were good and other ones weren't. After hearing this, I'm still not sold. I think it sounds different. I respect the fact that this does not sound like he's trying to do an MCU copy-paste, which is nice and what I was hoping for. But I can't help but look at some of the things on that list and think to myself, I don't think that should be a part of the DCEU. Like, I get this is his vision. He's a director. He's the co-CEO of DC, not me. That's not for me to say. But he mentioned that he wants to be true to the fans, and I think time will tell how this turns out. For me, I'm very divided on this. I'm not yet sold. And I initially had a very close mind. I was part of #FireJamesGunn, and I decided, just give him a chance. Let's see what he has to say. I've heard it, and I'm just still I'm very mixed. I don't know other way to put it. It's just a lot of the stuff in here feels out of place, and it could be just because everything's vague, but it doesn't feel like there's a clear direction yet. And I'm sure he has a direction, because he said he's got an 8 to 10 year plan, and he's got so much lined up, he was saying, moving forward, and he just can't talk about a lot of it because it's in production. But this is going to prove interesting moving forward, because I feel like upon the releases of these things, we're going to see the two divisions. The loyal fans to the old way and the new fans, the accepting way, and those few that are in the middle. There's going to be a civil war, and that could affect the box office. And this is going to be interesting coming up. So I'm intrigued. Moving forward, I'm not 100% sold. If I had to give this entire concept that he has moving forward a rating, I would give it a 5 out of 10. Because I just don't know yet. So Let me know in the comments what you guys think down below. I really love to hear your opinion on this. This is something that's really been a big topic if you're into DC. So I'm into DC and Marvel, so for me this is pretty interesting. So thank you guys as always so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I will see you all next time.